They said they would never speak again. They said the damage was too deep. That after the betrayal, the leaked letters, the late-night calls, and the tears neither of them ever admitted to, there was no way back. But then last night, in the soft glow of a rooftop restaurant in Beijing, everything changed. Because when Shen Yue walked in alone and sat by the window, no one blinked. But when Bai Lu followed 10 minutes later, her steps silent and face unreadable, the world stopped breathing. And when the two sat across from each other, no scripts, no cameras, just decades of silence between them. It wasn't just dinner. It was history being rewritten. Forgiveness unfolding in real time. And for the first time since the chaos started, they weren't two women caught in someone else's storm. They were the storm. And everyone was watching. It started with a single photo. A blurry image taken by a fan seated across the rooftop restaurant. Two figures seated at a corner table. One in soft gray. The other in crisp white. Their heads slightly leaned in. Eyes locked. Expressions unreadable. But what truly shook the internet wasn't the picture. It was the identities of the two people in it. Shen Yue and Bai Lu. Together. In public. At the same table. Sharing dinner. Just days ago, the thought of these two women being in the same room without a script or a director would have been impossible. Not after everything. Not after the betrayal that flooded headlines and twisted fandoms into rival armies. Not after Wang's name became the storm cloud hanging above both of them. And yet here they were. No camera crews. No stylists. No managers. Just two women sitting quietly at the edge of Beijing's skyline as the sun dipped below the glass towers around them. The fan who posted the photo didn't even realize what they were capturing at first. The caption was short. Looks like a reunion. Wonder what they're talking about. But within minutes, comments exploded. Wait, is that who I think it is? Are you telling me Bai Lu and Shen Yue are eating together? How is this real? And then came the theories. Thousands of them. From makeup artists claiming insider knowledge, to bloggers swearing it was a PR stunt, to fans simply crying into their phones. Because for the first time in months, the narrative had shifted. This wasn't about who loved who, or who broke who. This was about survival, forgiveness, and maybe something deeper. Let's rewind. Shen Yue had disappeared for weeks after the infamous leaked audio scandal. The one where she was overheard in what sounded like a tearful phone call with Dylan. The one that led to Bai Lu walking off set in silence. The one that split the fandom like a sword. And Bai Lu, she hadn't spoken a word publicly since her handwritten note was leaked. A note believed to be a confession of love for someone who had already moved on. Both women were drowning in questions they never answered. Until now. Sources inside the restaurant revealed they entered separately. Shen Yue arrived first. Unrecognizable in a gray hoodie and black cap. She walked to the corner table without a word, ordered tea, and stared out at the city below her. 15 minutes later, Bai Lu walked in, hair tied back, wearing minimal makeup. She didn't smile. She didn't look around. She went straight to the table and sat down. At first, they didn't speak, just looked at each other, as if trying to decide whether they were still enemies, or just two people broken by the same man. Then came the first words, mouthing softly. Shen Yue leaned in and whispered something that made Bai Lu's eyes go wide. Restaurant staff said Bai Lu sat still for 5 full seconds, then let out a quiet laugh. Not bitter, not cruel, but exhausted, like someone who had been holding pain in her chest for far too long. And then they talked. For almost 2 hours. No phones. No interruptions. Just words. Real words. Heavy words. At one point, Shen Yue pulled something from her bag. A folded piece of paper. She slid it across the table. Bai Lu stared at it. Then picked it up and read it. She didn't cry. But she reached across the table and held Shen Yue's hand for a moment. That was the moment the staff knew. This wasn't about drama. This wasn't about fame. This was about two women choosing peace. And maybe healing. By the end of the meal, they were sharing a dessert. cutting into a soft mango pudding and laughing about something no one else could hear. And when they stood up, they walked out together,
side by side,
out the front door, into the cool Beijing air, and into a sea of flashing cameras they had no way to avoid. The first photo that hit the internet captured a powerful image. Shen Yue looking straight ahead,
calm, composed,
while Bai Lu tilted her head slightly toward Shen Yue,
as if silently saying,
"We're in this together now." When asked about the dinner by a reporter,
Shen Yue didn't speak.
But Bai Lu offered 5 words before stepping into a waiting car. Sometimes closure starts with T. That one sentence sparked a wildfire. What did they mean by closure? Were they forgiving each other? Or finally freeing themselves from Dylan's shadow? Fan accounts began posting old clips of them laughing behind the scenes during their first drama project together. They were never enemies. One tweet read, "They were just collateral damage in someone else's silence." And that silence finally shattered that night. For the first time since the chaos began, Shen Yue and Bai Lu weren't part of the scandal. They were the story, not as rivals, but as women reclaiming their peace. Together, they didn't say much, but they didn't have to, because sometimes the loudest message comes from sitting down at the same table, looking the past in the eye, and choosing not to run. And maybe, just maybe, that's the kind of ending people never expected, but needed most. The internet hadn't finished catching its breath from Shen Yue and Bai Lu's dinner when something even more explosive surfaced. A letter,
folded, creased,
and now digital, leaked by an anonymous account with no profile picture, posted at midnight. No caption, just the scanned image of a handwritten page. And at the bottom, a signature, initialed only with AB. The handwriting matched what fans had already seen from Bai Lu months earlier. But this time, the words weren't directed at Dylan. They were for Shen Yue. And what they revealed shattered every assumption people had about the drama. "You weren't the one who hurt me. I was already broken when I walked in. You just reminded me what it felt like to be seen,
to be envied,
to be hated, and somehow, to be loved, even if only in silence." Those were the opening lines.
Raw,
unfiltered, personal in a way that made it clear this was never meant for the public. And yet it was out, and spreading like wildfire. Fans went into a frenzy. Some were heartbroken. Others were confused. Had Bai Lu and Shen Yue once shared more than just friendship? Was this about Dylan at all? Or had the storm between the three of them always been more complicated than anyone imagined? The hashtags trended within minutes. Bai Lu letter to Shen Yue. Shen Yue truth revealed. What Dylan never knew. And then, Dylan Wong finally broke his silence. Not in a press statement. Not in an interview. But on his private account. One only close friends followed. He posted a black and white photo of a notebook. Open. Blank. And wrote 3 words in the caption. "I never knew." Those 3 words set the fandom on fire. Because for the first time since the emotional triangle began, it seemed Dylan was admitting something.